It is time for this edition of Around the Big Ten. Did you know that Bill Belichick, big Northwestern women's lacrosse fan, he was there for the game against Ohio State, goes all the way back to 2008. Kelly Amonte Hiller and the Cats were two-time defending national champs. She needed a perspective from someone whose teams had been there, what that pressure was like. She reached out to the Patriots. Belichick himself got back to her. She said she thought it was a joke that somebody was pranking her. It was, in fact, the legendary coach. They've been friends ever since. Meanwhile, the softball team doing good work as always. Drohan sisters once again leading the Big Ten's best. Northwestern with a weekend sweep over Maryland. Cats have now won 7 in a row. They sit atop the Big Ten standings. They are 12-1 in line for yet another regular season championship and a spot in the NCAA tournament. And the Illini baseball team is doing some serious yard work. Jacob Schroeder, Drake Westcott, each hitting 3 bombs in the win over Northern Illinois. First time Illinois teammates have hit 3 home runs since at least 2004. And we say at least because that's as far back as those official stats go. So it could be an even longer stretch than that. Speaking of long stretches, 2007, now the last time the Big Ten won a national championship. Of course, Michigan State wasn't officially a Big Ten hockey school back then, but they were a Big Ten institution. Since then, the league has been to the Frozen Four, but they can't quite get over that hump. Minnesota lost in overtime in the title game a year ago. Michigan this season made its 3rd consecutive appearance in the Frozen Four, but for the 3rd straight year, the Wolverines lose in the national semifinals 4-0 to Boston College. We were there to watch it in person. Rick Pizzo, Paul Caponigri. Listen, it's still a great season for Michigan, but everybody's wondering and waiting for that next national championship. I mentioned none for the Big Ten since 2007, none for Michigan since 98.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it last week. It's with Michigan, too. They were like the 4th team in the Big Ten this year. But they found a way, and I think that's something you have to give them a lot of credit for. They find a way to get there. Now it's just obviously getting over that big hump. And when you're in the Frozen Four, you're playing obviously against elite talent.
Best.
Right. So, what do you, it's like kind of, so many positives, but there's a but at the end. And like you said, there's only one team win. And look, the number 1 team that was on a 15-game winning streak, they didn't win it. Boston College got upset. You call it an upset. Denver was a number 1 seed too, but that was an upset. So it is so difficult to win. So with Michigan and then with the Big Ten, but I just love the way the Big Ten is trending.
Yes.
You keep putting teams in, you keep winning games, getting to those elite spots, you're going to find a way.
And let's give credit to Brandon Naurato. Remember, it was just over a year ago, right before the 2023 Frozen Four, that he was named the permanent head coach after having taken over earlier in the year after Mel Pearson's dismissal. He basically spent the whole season as the interim. They get into the Frozen. They make it back this year. I understand they've lost against 2 really good teams in the national semifinals and in a game in 2022 in the Frozen Four as well. But pretty much every other program in the nation, save those who won the national title, would trade places with the Wolverines.
Well, they're the only team that's done it for 3 years in a row. And for Brandon to do that, a young coach, his coaching staff is young. And I think that's a good thing. Yeah, maybe you want to bring in a veteran guy sometimes, but the relationships with the kids right now is so important. And I think they've locked that in. A former team of mine, Matt Deschamps, has come in and he's really done well with the defense. Fred Pletch talked about that last week.
He's a genius, they call him.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's great. And you put the genius with the talent you bring in, and you saw that was where Michigan was able to get to the Frozen Four. Their defense, all the offense they talked about, their defense was what really solidified them late in that year. You saw other guys come up when Seamus Casey got hurt. So a lot of good things for Michigan to build off of it. Like you said, it's only Brandon Naurato's. It's going to be his 2nd full year as the guy. He's building his recruits, all that kind of stuff. So good things ahead for Michigan.
Of course, the Wolverines got to the Frozen Four because they won a regional final against their in-state rivals from East Lansing. Michigan State had beaten Michigan 4 of 5 previous meetings during the year, but the Wolverines won in the one game with the Frozen Four on the line. Still, what a year it was for Adam Nightingale and the Spartans. And you start to think about the future. They have a renovated MUN. They have an unbelievable roster. Recruiting right now for Nightingale and this staff is off the charts. And now kids want to transfer from other top-end schools to play in East Lansing. I think he has this program here to stay.
Without a doubt. I think the big thing now is like you almost you might have a problem of too many. And right now, this is the last year with the 5th year, right? The COVID year. You might want a guy like their captain, Nash Nienhuis, might want to come back. And so then maybe you hold off a guy. But what they're doing right now is, yes, you've become like now the wanted program.
You're a destination.
Right. Before you had to like, not say beg, but you had to over-recruit to get players. Now you have your facilities are set. You saw the place for the Big Ten tournament championship game was just bananas. Like, if you're a recruit, you were at that game, why would you not want to go there? So they have everything working for him, and I love Adam Nightingale's demeanor. He's never too high, too low. He's right in the middle, and he relates really well to the kids, and I think that helps too. So all good things in Michigan State right now.
2 other teams making it to the NCAA tournament,
Yep.
of course, Minnesota and Wisconsin as well. And I know those teams didn't get to the Frozen, and they had some high expectations, but the expectations are always going to be there in the Twin Cities
Yes.
when you play for pride on ice. I mean, that is what the Gophers are all about. And Wisconsin, remember, I know Mike Hastings has been there, done that, but this was year 1 for him in Madison, so there's plenty to build on there as well.
Well, and especially from where they came last year. They were at the bottom of the league. I think, and we talked about this before, he took them, I think, the expectations were in the middle, I think. I had them about 4th or 5th in the league beforehand. He got them up to the top, but then I think they regressed to where about they should have been. You know, they were a top 10-ish team, not a top 5 when it came down to it, and you kind of saw how it ended. But it was a great building block for them. Very similar to what Adam Nightingale did 2 years ago. I think Wisconsin had a little more talent this year, and then obviously Kyle McClellan, who wins the Mike Richter Award, was obviously a huge boost in net. But it's very similar to what Michigan State is doing. Wisconsin is. It wasn't a flash in the pan. This is a building block, and they're going to be coming. And so now you have 4 teams right now, right there, that are right at the top, and it's going to put pressure on Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Penn State, recruiting-wise, and to get back up there. Because when you have a 17-team league, you got to play those teams all the time, and it's going to be really hard to kind of get over 500. And Notre Dame's had that trouble, right? They're right at that 500 level, but that doesn't get you into the tournament most times.
And we shall see what happens next year with all this roster turnover, because we saw Cutter Gauthier, the nation's leading goal scorer, signing with Anaheim earlier in the week. There is some top-level talent that could potentially leave college hockey right now that would completely change the landscape, not just in the Big Ten, but in Hockey East, NCHC, and the other leagues that have dominated college hockey over the last couple of years. Speaking of that, we'll take one final break. Have we seen the final games in college for the likes of Brindley and Artie as they dream of copying Frankie's first? The answer, and yes, we'll explain what I'm talking about, coming up next.